G'day guys, hope you're well and having a good day. Now, before we get into this video, just a quick disclaimer. This is a very sensitive topic, and also I have a personal involvement and relationship in this case. So everything in this video actually, well, not everything, but most things weren't written by myself. It was written by a third-party writer and someone who gathers my intelligence on this. So it can sit out of my bias because I have a personal connection. I have, of course, a bias on this. And just to point out that bias originally, Mr. Aslin, Aiden Aslin, who were well known as Cossack Gundi on Instagram, very well known Instagram, 100,000+ followers. Him and I had followed each other for a few years, and there was that mutual sort of, we both were soldiers, whatever. And he was the one I originally reached out to, wanting some information about coming to Ukraine in the Donbass region to film. And this was pre the February invasion. Once I was in Ukraine, I was filming around, doing whatever. And an interesting part of this is that the day before the invasion, him and I were actually meant to have a coffee in Mariupol. Sadly can confirm my mate can't come. That sucks. The city in which he eventually had been surrendered and caught as a prisoner of war. And I was meant to meet him in Mariupol. I was there waiting around, and he was like, "Hey, sorry, mate, I can't catch up today." So I cruised back home, and then I wasn't to know at the time that in 8 or 9 hours from that point, there would be missiles hitting Ukraine and a full-scale invasion. And Shaun, also known as Salty Dog on Instagram, him and I had not the same relationship, but we did both follow each other on social media, and I had spoken to him previously about the opportunities for me coming, well, at least options for me coming into Ukraine in Donbass region and filming with the gentleman on the front line there. So hope that clears up my actual relationship and personal involvement. I would call Aiden a friend of mine. Yeah, so this is going to still try and be as neutral as possible. Like I said, I didn't write this specifically, although I have had involvement in how it comes out. So an update: Ukrainian war captured Britons sentenced to death alongside a Moroccan who's also been sentenced to death. In my last update, being day 105, I mentioned the court case in the Donetsk People's Republic, the DPR, against 2 British men and a Moroccan man. The case is now finished, and according to reports from the Russian state media, all 3 men have been sentenced to death and have been given 30 days to appeal their sentences. The men were found guilty of, quote, mercenary activities and, quote, committing actions aimed at seizing power and overthrowing constitutional order of the DPR. So I guess what does that mean actually in plain English? A mercenary can be defined as a professional soldier hired to serve in a foreign army, to which some would argue, yes, these men are mercenaries. But this isn't that simple. Both British men have lived in Ukraine since 2018 and insist they are long-serving members of the Ukrainian military and not mercenaries. According to some reports, they also hold Ukrainian citizenship. Robert Jenrick, a British Member of Parliament, has condemned what he called trumped-up charges faced by the British pair and accused Russia of completely outrageous breach of international law. But where the grey area is these 3 men were enlisted members in the Ukrainian military before the invasion in February 2022. They were not joining the foreign legion or the foreign battalions that have been raised post the war. This is the primary argument for people saying that this does not meet the criteria for a foreign mercenary, as they were in a foreign military and therefore should be protected under the Prisoner of War Act. As we've seen, Russia have prisoners of war and enable exchanges with soldiers of theirs who are held prisoner in Ukraine as well. An interesting part of this is the DPR, the Donetsk People's Republic, claims to be an independent country, separate from Ukraine and separate from Russia. Since 2014, they declared independence in the aftermath of the Maidan Revolution. This is a long story, but we can talk about it in another video of how this has all happened. But back to the second part of this charge. Mr. Aslin and Mr. Pinner served the Ukrainian armed forces, and according to the DPR, the main objective was to remove the power structures in Donetsk Oblast and reincorporate the entirety of the Donetsk Oblast back into Ukraine and establish full political control. These objectives would bring an end to the existence of the DPR. I hope this helps explain what I think they mean by committing actions aimed at seizing power and overthrowing constitutional order of the DPR. Russia is the only UN member to actually recognise the DPR as an independent country. The rest of the world recognises DPR as part of Ukraine. Some believe that this situation has been manufactured by Russia, so the British government and the Moroccan government is forced to in fact recognise the DPR as an independent country and then start direct negotiations to save the 2 British men and the Moroccan man from execution. The head of the Donetsk People's Republic, the DPR, Pushlin, has said that there's been no contact from the British or Moroccan governments. So I hope that's a bit of a summary for the current situation of what's happening. But as there's developments, I'm happy to do follow-up videos and try and be as sort of third party as possible to the situation happening. So for those wondering, who are these guys and how did they end up fighting for Ukraine? Aiden Aslin, Cossack Gundi on Instagram. You know, as I mentioned, 100,000 followers. He had actually not served in a military before. Aiden was a 28-year-old born in Newark, Nottingham, England. And according to reports and my personal relationship, he was a care worker. And then in 2015, he travelled to Syria, where he spent approximately 10 months with the YPG, which is one of the Kurdish militias in the Syrian civil war. He was then arrested when he returned to the UK, Aslin was questioned under the Terrorism Act. He was eventually acquitted and returned to Syria for a second tour of duty with the YPG in 2016. In 2018, Aiden joined the Ukrainian regular military. His fiancée is Ukrainian national and he's been living in Ukraine since. Mr. Pinner. Shaun Pinner is a 48-year-old who is originally from Bedfordshire. He has a military background. He served in the Royal Anglian Regiment for many years. He served on many tours, including Northern Ireland and with the United Nations in Bosnia. The former soldier had moved to Ukraine in 2018 before joining the Ukrainian Marines to pass over his expertise he picked up from the British Army. He was also married to a Ukrainian. According to Mr. Pinner's family, he was due to complete his 3-year contract in the military at the end of 2022 and planned to move to a humanitarian role within Ukraine. Brahim Saaudun is a 21-year-old Moroccan man. Saaudun moved to Ukraine in 2019, initially to study. However, he reportedly dropped out of education and signed a 3-year contract with the Armed Forces of Ukraine in 2021. The Moroccan Foreign Ministry has yet to comment on the case of Brahim Saaudun. Both Aiden and Shaun were part of the 36th Brigade 1st Battalion of the Ukrainian Marines and were taking part in the defence of Mariupol's Azovstal steelworks at the time of the surrender. They were understood to have ceased fighting after running out of food and ammunition. A post shared by a contact on Twitter reads, "It's been 48 days. We tried our best to defend Mariupol, but we have no choice but to surrender to Russian forces. We have no food, no ammunition. It's been a pleasure, everyone. I hope this war ends soon." After being captured, videos have been shared of interviews of both men. A YouTube channel has been set up in Aiden's name and uploaded videos from his custody. I'm not sure the purpose or motivation behind this.
They have the tattoo with the YPG here.
Again, thank you for sitting through and watching this with me. I do really appreciate it. I know this can be sensitive, and I would actually like to know your opinions on this in the comments below. So thank you very much. Have a great day, and I will keep you up to date as much as I can on here with these videos about the conflict in general, but also following this case, because I think this is sort of breaking news, and a lot of people have a lot of interest in what's happening here, and this will be very interesting to see where this goes with the DPR being independent from Russia and Ukraine, and if people will actually see it as an independent state or not, if they need to do the negotiating. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, and have a great day.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah.